Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we publish world-changing wellness books. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This interview is part of a powerful series to celebrate Brave Kids Books, a new imprint from Brave Healer Productions. The mission is to share brave words with kids and their parents all over the world so they can learn about all of the magic life has to offer. And here to talk about her book, The Race, is Lindsay Reiling. Lindsay's book was inspired by her son's friend who had leukemia. She believes that we're all affected by one another's struggles, and the awareness of this affection is what can truly yield connection and change in our lives and in the world. Welcome, Lindsay. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me the story of how this idea got going and what happened with it.
Yes, it was one day my husband came home and he said, I have some bad news. Jack is sick and has leukemia. I just found out. So Jack is my son's friend from British Columbia. We're a province over in Alberta, and they BMX race together. So he's 12 years old. And my son and my husband and I just teared up at the kitchen table and just could not believe news like that. He's such a healthy, vibrant, talented, really athletic kid. And to hear that is really sobering. So for me, growing up, my older brother had leukemia all throughout our childhood and kept coming back. And he ended up passing away when he was 19 and I was 13 at the time. So for me, it was even more of an impact because of my experience with leukemia. So the next day I went for a walk and took my dog, Betty, with me and got some nature, and I just couldn't stop thinking about Jack. And I knew I just had some inside calling in me that I just wanted to say something to him. I didn't know what I wanted to say. It's hard in a situation like that. You're not sure what you want to say. You just want to give your support. So I came back from my walk and I just knew I had some kind of a message in me. I didn't know what it was. So I sat down at the computer and literally in 15, 20 minutes, the book just fell out onto my keyboard. I didn't even go in thinking I'm going to write a story. It just happened. So I feel like it was a channeled thing, definitely. And so it all came out, and then I stopped and I went back and reread it and went, hey, that's actually pretty good. And I sent it to my husband and said, what do you think? Do you think this is appropriate to send them? I just can't stop thinking about their family and just want to give them our love. And he said, wow, you wrote that? And I said, I know. So he suggested that we, he thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we published it and sold the book with the funds going to the family? And I just thought, wow, that's really cool. At the time, I had just started writing a memoir. So I was kind of in the writing zone a little bit. And so I sent it to the family, just the text of it, and said, I wrote this for Jack. Kyle, my husband, suggested maybe publishing if you guys were open to that. But if not, there is no, it doesn't matter to us, whatever. We just wanted to support you. And so they wrote back and said, the dad, Frank, he said, my wife and I have read it over and over and over. We keep getting tears in our eyes. We can't thank you enough. This is amazing. Jack loves his story that it's being told. And from there, it just kind of snowballed and we thought, okay, let's figure out how to do this. So that's kind of where it all began.
What an incredible story. I want to read the quote, and you're going to have to help me with Tori's last name. Tori.
Nighthawk.
Thank you. So you guys take a deep breath and listen to this quote. The race is a story of perseverance, self-accomplishment and fulfillment. Reading it puts me right back on my bike and feeling those senses and sensations before a race. This illustrates the different moments at a BMX race and the different emotional responses riders have to different moments. A perfect blend of body and bike and how they can work in complete unison. In sport, everybody is equal and everyone has a fair chance. Nothing else matters. It's a fun and descriptive read I enjoyed. So when I read that, and a little bit in the beginning of the book, I started to think about that word perseverance. But in the martial arts journey that I've taken, it's about an indomitable spirit. And that came through in this book so much. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that mindset that BMX racers have.
Yes, well, I have 3 kids and all 3 of them BMX race. So I have a son and 2 daughters. So my son is the one who is the most obsessed with it. And I believe he's an empath. My son and I feel each other's feelings. We read each other's minds. It's kind of crazy. So I have gone on this mental journey with him. When we first started out really traveling with BMX, him and I would just go by ourselves and we'd, fly to the States to go and do some races. So in BMX, it's very individual when you're racing. And so I am basically the mom, the coach, the bike tech, the whole works. So we kind of had to figure out that mental component because it can be very daunting and scary and intimidating. So it really is, you really do have to have a strong spirit. So my son Nolan and I would have to figure that out together and how to get over different mental obstacles, which is what sport is really great with. So the spirit of BMX community is that everyone comes together no matter who your kid is. We share food. Somebody is late for their race, a dad will just come and grab the bike and I got you, and we'll run to the race, and everyone just helps each other out. In the race itself, it really there's a special connection with kids and their bikes, or racers essentially and their bikes. There's a real connection to it. And so that's kind of where my idea for the story where the bike is sick came from, and I know this just from my son, is that he can feel his bike. He will come to me and say, something's not right, Mom. There's a sound here, there's a feeling, I don't know what it is, but it's something over here. There's a real connection with them and their bike. So it's something that is, it's not just a physical thing. It goes beyond that. And so there's lots of crashes in BMX. There's lots of ups and downs. You just, in BMX, you really never know who's going to win on any given day. Even in the fastest kids sometimes crash, and it's all over the place. You really have an even chance. And I think that's what makes it really exciting. So when I was coming up with it, I thought, well, the connection with the bike is number one. And I want Jack to know that we are cheering him on and that he has some control in this uncontrollable feeling and disease, and in an uncontrollable race, really, for other kids who are riding it, because you really only have control over yourself and your bike, essentially.
These ideas, what gifts you give, we give our children in talking about all of these kinds of things, right? So you talked about your son being an empath. I love that. One of the things I always wished I had earlier in life as a kid was that stronger connection to my intuition. And maybe I had it, but lost it, that journey, right? So how is this for actually you growing up?
Well, with my brother being sick and being a sibling of a brother with cancer, a lot of it was, I didn't want to make it harder on my parents. So I have 2 older sisters, I'm the youngest. And so we knew it was a stressful situation for my parents. And so we really wanted to try and be essentially the good girls because we didn't want to make them more sad. We didn't want to make it harder on them. We wanted to make it smoother. Being an empath myself, I could feel what they were feeling. I could feel their sadness. I could feel their fear. And so I didn't want to add to that. So I think I just swallowed a lot of it, kind of hid away. My sister, who's the closest in age to me, kind of took on that mother role, like, we're doing this and you're coming here and that kind of thing. So she kind of took on that role. And I think for a lot of years, I just kept it inside and just didn't listen to it growing up. And we didn't really talk a lot about spirit or about the afterlife or heaven. I didn't go to church growing up, so I didn't have that sort of background. But the funny thing is, I guess it's, the interesting thing I should say, is that so I was terrified of dying as a child, terrified. And I would lay in bed and just think there's just a darkness that's going to overcome me, and I would try and just shake it out of my head. And so the ironic thing is, I guess, after my brother passed away is when I stopped being afraid of death and dying, because it was so evident that he was all around us. He was sending us signs like crazy. He made a visitation in my mom's dreams the night he died. It was just so evident. So I think after that point, then my parents started talking more about signs from spirit and the afterlife, and talking more about my brother and sensing him and feeling him. And so I think that's when it started to develop, or it came back out again, because there was just such a huge sense that there was just no denying that there was so much more to us and to life, and that there really is an afterlife, and our soul goes on.
I love listening to you. And you don't know this, but I'm currently editing a book project called Sacred Death. And you're speaking of the story that many of the authors start to talk about. This is so important. And I hope that parents listening realize that these are the kinds of things we really should talk to our kids about. Watching.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Watching my own two grow up, I always worried about doing everything right, saying everything right, acting in the right ways. And I actually think that great parents have a certain amount of that kind of awareness, no matter how they were brought up.
Yes.
So how do you think we can be better parents in this way?
I think we can screw up and talk about it and be open with it. For me, I remember reading something that said, if you screw up as a parent, if you fail, if you do something wrong, model for your kids how to apologize, and apologize to your kids. And you think, oh, I'm the parent, I don't want to seem weak, and I don't want to, that just seems wrong. And it feels, I've many times I've said sorry to my kids for yelling or just losing my patience or whatever it was. And it feels really uncomfortable for me. And I know that's just something inside me that I'm like, why is it so hard to say I'm sorry? I'm too proud. You have that sense that I need to be perfect. But I think the biggest gift we can give them is to show them that we can screw up, that we make mistakes, that we fail a lot. Because if we show them this perfect life, they're going to go into their life, they're going to fail, and they're going to say, what's wrong with me? Something is wrong with me. This isn't right. I'm not perfect. They're trying to live up to some expectation that is false. That's not true. That's not real. And I really try and instill, when they come home and they're crying or mad about a test, or, oh, I failed this, I'll say, that's okay. I said, do you know how many tests I failed? I said, does it bother me now? Do you think I think about that now? And they're like, well, no. And I said, well, what did you learn from it? What could you have done differently? Let's make it a lesson. I said, no problem, laugh it off, and it's okay. And that would be, I think my second thing would be the ability to laugh at yourself is a really good trait to start to instill in our kids and instill in ourselves, just to have a sense of humor about life, to not take ourselves too seriously. We're gonna screw up. It's just the way that it is, and that's how we learn. We learn the most from our screw ups. So
I love that. You're making me think of a moment when I apologized to my daughter. I can't even remember what it was for, but I stepped up, said I was sorry. And the moment when, in surprise, that she looked up at me like, whoa, mom's apologizing. And it was just this hit of, whoa, that mattered.
yeah,
And she was taking it in. And I think that is such a gift, because we don't know everything, and we do make the mistakes. And I'm just so happy that you talked about that.
yeah, it is really big, and it's interesting to recognize yourself and how you felt at that time as a parent, because it doesn't feel natural. At least it didn't feel for me. It didn't feel natural. I didn't feel like I wanted to do it, but I knew it was important to do. And I thought they need to be modeled. If I'm expecting them to say sorry to their siblings when they get in a fight or when they hurt their feelings or whatever it is, I need to model how to do that.
Yes. And that makes, I think, is the mark of a great parent, one of the marks of a great parent. So one of the bigger ahas on my journey was realizing my parents were always doing the best they could with what they had, the resources and the information at the time, right? But it took a while, like into my adult years, to
Yes.
get to that sort of love and forgiveness stage. But then better, so you do better. And I try to move into my parenting, but actually it's about all relationships, right? With that kind of knowing, like, I know that resonates with you. How did that play out on your journey when you were looking at your own parents?
Yeah, I think I almost remember a time when I don't know what happened, but I suddenly went, my parents aren't perfect. I think we always go through there's a certain time when we start to recognize exactly what you said, that it's, nobody's perfect. They were just doing the best that they could. They were just surviving. And it was sometime in my teens that I just went, oh, they're human. Wow. Like they're not this being that we're looking up to. It's they're flawed humans, just like we all are. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a really interesting moment for that. But I always say that to myself, you're just doing the best that you can. It's okay. They will have these moments when they're growing up. They will forgive you. It's okay. Just you did the best that you could with what you knew at the time. Your awareness has changed, so now I can change my behavior. So
Yes, that self-awareness, that is a big deal.
yeah.
So I want to know what you think is the most important message we can share with kids right now.
Oh, I think it is the going back to the intuition and listening to themselves. Their teachers tell them what to do. Parents tell them what to do. Siblings tell them what to do. Society tells them what to do, or what they should look like, what they should be, what they should say. And the most important, what my saying to my kids is, who is the number one person you need to love the very, very most? And they always go, myself.
Awesome,
yes,
Mom.
yes. I'm like, even more than me, you need to love yourself more than you love me. And when I first kind of said that, they were like, what do you mean? But it's true. We need to love. We can't do our best without loving ourselves first and being in that place. So I think that's the most important thing. And that we have so much wisdom inside of us that is steering us in a direction and is our own guide and is our own parent, so to speak, that knows more than we do. And it is guiding, and that they should listen to their body and the senses that they're feeling and their emotions, and that it's okay to feel those emotions and to learn from them and understand them And just listening to that inner guidance, I think, is number one, because I think a lot of the kids now growing up, which is amazing, are going to be really spiritual kids. And it's going to be really neat to watch them grow up and have a really wide open view of the world and the universe and themselves. So I think just listening and understanding that there's way more than any of us could ever know, and to be open to what the universe has to offer.
I agree with you. I've been watching that in my children and other children as well. It's exciting, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. I get so excited when one of their friends, they look at they're always attracted to the crystals at first. And then that kind of segues into some more spiritual topics that they talk about. And what does this crystal do? And why did you buy this one? And oh, what does this singing bowl do? And all the fun stuff that we all start out with on our spiritual journeys. And then it just takes us further, and we realize we don't really need any things to be spiritual, but it's kind of a little bit of a door into that world and opens the conversation.
Yes, what a great point. The crystals, totally.
Every kid, there is not a kid, no matter what their gender, they love crystals.
Yes.
And they are attracted to them. Every kid that I've had come into my house, I have a lot of crystals. I love them. And my kids and I go to the crystal shop, so they have crystals in their rooms. And every kid comes and they hold them and they look, and they're really attracted to them. So there's a lot more going on, and they're closer to the spiritual world than us old folks. So I feel like they have more of a connection to them than we do.
That's awesome. So the proceeds of the sales of the race, talk a little bit about that foundation and just tell all the listeners about that.
Mm-hmm. Initially, we had wanted the funds to go to the family. And so I had mentioned that to the family, and they said, we really appreciate that, but we would really love it to go to a charity instead, so we can help more kids. And so I said, that's great. Where were you thinking? So Jack is getting treatment at the British Columbia Children's Hospital in Vancouver. And they said, we are getting excellent treatment there. The nurses and doctors are amazing. How about we put the funds to that? So I said, great idea. I love that. So I contacted the BC Children's Hospital Foundation and said, okay, this is what we're doing. And I got an email right back, really, really helpful. And she said, well, you can funnel, if you want, you can just do broad, whatever money you raise can go to whatever is needed at the hospital at the time, or you can direct it to the leukemia department. And so for me, with my brother and with Jack, I said, yes, please, let's direct it right to the leukemia department. So that was really exciting for me, that it felt like I was doing something as well to help other families and going through this cancer journey. My best friend, her son had kidney cancer. And so I went through that a couple of years ago with her, and of course it's still ongoing as well. They are going for their scans every few months. It's not just you get your chemo and your radiation, you ring your bell at the end, and then you're done. That is not the end of the journey at all. There are, and I found this out with my best friend's boy, there's scans every month at the beginning. Oh, I apologize, my phone. There we go. Oh, and now I lost. Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go.
No problem.
It was the school calling. And so there's scans now every 3 months. And then after a couple of years, then there's scans every 6 months. And my friend, she said she gets major anxiety every single time those scans come up. There's after effects from the chemo itself, where they have, well, it's different for each kid, but her son has some foot problems that have been caused by the chemo, and there's educational things that need to be taken into place. So it's really not just you go in, get your treatment, and then you're done and you're cured and yay, you're finished. It really is a lifelong journey. And so the more we can raise awareness and funds and any kind of help going through that situation is, we just want to do as much as we can, because it's not an easy journey. And like you said in my bio, we are all affected by it. And as a world, I believe we're all connected. And so for me, I was so affected by Jack's story that I wrote him a book, and now look at what it's turning into. So we're affected in a good way because we are empathic beings, and we do feel for one another. And I think that's where our strength is where we can connect and talk and feel the feelings and be in that and be with those people who are going through those tough situations, because we all have our struggles. They might not look the same, might not be the same, but we all have been in those crappy situations and struggles. And so whatever we can do to help each other is what I would like to do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Amen to that. Okay, listeners, please explore the show notes below. I've got you hooked up with Lindsay's website, the Amazon links for her book, both for the US and Canada. Maybe you know a kid who needs a Brave Kids book like this, right? Lindsay, thank you so much for what you're doing in the world, and for being here today to share it with everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
So you guys, if you want to chat with us about your Brave Kids book idea, visit us and schedule a chat with the publishing team at bravehealer.com. And lastly, I want everyone to remember, you were born so you are worthy. Your message matters, and you'll change the world when you're brave enough to share it. See you next time, everybody. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.